best entertainment on the earth. Tune in for Comics with Perch.
Perch, what's going on with Netflix? Well, today, this video will probably be out in a few days. The headline is that Netflix lost a ton of subscribers and money. And that's bad news and shocking. I think the headline I saw on the TV as I walked by was shocking subscriber loss. Netflix, and the stock has plunged and everything else. Same thing's happening to Disney with Disney Plus, but to a lesser extent. Netflix is the one that's really shaken people. And I was watching, I was in a Starbucks and they had CNN on the TV. And that's where I was seeing this little thing. And they had that chubby, bald idiot who is like Brian Seltzer. He's terrible. And I got to thinking, like so many of these people who are the newscasters on these cable shows, be it Sean Hannity or something Waters guy on Fox, or back when Cuomo was on CNN, and like these are all awful people. Like I tried to imagine myself having a drink with any of these people, right wing, left wing. You can throw Rachel Maddow in there, the two bozos that have the morning show on MSNBC. Like all these people look thoroughly unpleasant. Like these are the people who you would desperately want to avoid. If you walked into a party and you saw these people, you would not go to that party. It's a terrible bunch of buffoons in there. But anyway, so somebody took the time to write in a mail asking about Netflix, and it goes like this. It says, hey, just wanted to hear your take on the recent plunging of Netflix stock value and how it relates to the indie comics market that courts development deals with Netflix and other streamers. It's bad news for the indie comic companies that are raising money based on the idea that they're going to get on Netflix. It's very bad news for them, but we'll get more to that in a minute. Do you think the news, this is back to the letter, that Netflix itself is projecting 2 million subscribers to cancel their subscriptions the next quarter is going to negatively impact the market for indie comic limited series that, the answer is yes, by the way, that for all intents and purposes serve as thinly veiled proof of concept streaming service pitches? Will there be an incentive for these small publishers to publish these series if there seems to be no hope of the big score of streaming series presented over the last 5 or 6 years? Or conversely, do you think that some of the more popular and recognizable series with that built-in audience for either title or creative team will appear as safer bets for if there's a pullback on the amount of content a company like Netflix can produce in a year? I don't think it's that one. Anyway, for one person who actually enjoys your videos, well, thanks for writing it that way. On your insights of the business end of things, keep mind Perch Excelsior. All right, Excelsior. I love it. Love this audience. Love the people who write me mail. Thank you very much for writing in. So this is bad news. No doubt about it, this is very bad news for the companies that have, and it's bad news on two fronts. Number one, yes, comics have turned themselves into this weird little vehicle for Netflix shows. And keep in mind, Netflix is the canary in the coal mine that's going to affect Paramount, Peacock, whatever, what the hell, Amazon Prime, Tubi, Hulu, Disney Plus, HBO Max. Like all of them are going to pull back a little bit on there because all of them are going to face the same subscriber loss. Now, what's interesting is people are like, well, how come there is a subscriber loss? How did this happen? The answer is very, very simple. And no, I do not believe it's because Netflix got too woke. I don't believe that. I know that Elon Musk tweeted something along the lines like, this is what happens when you go too woke. I don't think so. I mean, if that was the case, this would have happened years ago. What's happened is there's too many, and they all cost money, and people are now going back to work. They've been stuck at home for 2 years with COVID, and they're going back in, and they're like, they've now been in the office for a few times. We're facing a economic downturn that, by all projections, is going to be sort of ugly. And people are like, you know what? I'm going to cut back on some of my purchases. That's what's going on. Just exactly that. There's this index, and I swear to God, this is a real thing. You can go look it up on Google if you want. You might have to be careful about how you type in the search, but it's called the underwear principle for recessions. And the idea is that, believe it or not, they actually track underwear sales as a litmus test for a recession. The logic being that underwear is not something that you see on the outside. It's something that's tucked away in pants, or dresses or skirts or whatever, most likely. And when people pull back on buying underwear, It is a sign that they are tightening their belts, metaphorically, that they are saving money. And when they're buying underwear more frequently, it means that they feel like they have more disposable income to spend. Now, you may say this is absolute nonsense. However, this underwear index has actually predicted recessions for the last something like 80 years. It's proven to be actually highly effective as a psychological, litmus test to, are we about to face a downturn? Guess what? People are buying less underwear. Men and women. Victoria's Secret is suffering. Yes, that too may be because Victoria's Secret has suddenly decided to do plus size models and other things in their posters. I think, not to go off on a tangent there, but it's a lingerie store. You're selling fantasies. The store is called Victoria's Secret. It's selling fantasies. The whether we want to admit it or not, the posters in the front and everything else, and where a lot of the store gets its income from, is from this idea that you can look, or the guy is buying something hoping that if I just buy the right underwear, my girlfriend, wife, whatever it is going to look like this supermodel with the absolutely perfect tits and everything else. And of course, it's not true. It's advertising, but this idea of like, no, we need to be more realistic. No, you don't. You are a store that sells fantasies. Realism is your enemy. What are you doing? Anyway, sorry. I'm way afield from your question. The point is, people are tightening their belts. They're looking at purchases that are not required, and they're pulling back. As a general rule, subscription services for everything are seeing a reduction. Whether they are, of all things, being down here in Texas, several of the car wash places have a monthly subscription to car wash, and you pay, and then you go and you could wash your car as much as you want. And I was seeing a story about how several of the places here are having to lower their prices and push, because for the first time in the last 5 years, they've seen a drop in their subscribers. It's been all growth to this point. Why is that happening? Because everyone is starting to be a little bit more careful with their money. That's exactly what's going on Netflix. If you look across it, people are basically saying, where do I watch these shows? Do I watch Apple TV? Do I watch Hulu? Do I watch Disney? Do I watch Netflix? Or do I watch HBO? What do I watch? And they're going, you know what? I'm going to pick two, and I'm going to cancel the others. That's what's happening. They're saying, people are digesting the idea, like, there's so much content, I could just unsubscribe from Netflix for a couple of years, and I get caught up on what Amazon has, and then, or vice versa, or switch to something else. That's where their head's at. And that's what you're seeing right now. It's really that simple. I think that, though, that what the net effect of this is, as the subscriber growth drops, it's scaring the living hell out of the market. And this is where you're seeing their stock plunge and other things, because for quite a while, the streaming service has just been, full steam ahead. We're capturing viewers, and in many cases, Disney as example, I think they're still losing money on Disney Plus and the rollout and the service and everything else. I believe they are still actually operating at a loss, but it's been a benefit to their bottom line because they've been able to show projections and curves that say, we're going to keep growing our subscriber base to the point that we become cash flow positive soon. And then we get incredibly successful with our revenue, because we're continuing to add monthly subscribers while our costs will slowly drop. We'll have to, the cost for making the show, but the cost of operations and setup and everything else become fixed, and everything else is upside. This is, software as a service, SaaS, or subscription services. This is their entire model. They show this hockey stick where they say we're going to lose money for 2 years, but then we're going to break even in year 3, and then we're going to be at 3x return year 4, and in year 5 we're 20x return. This is the racket. And this has worked very successfully for things like Amazon AWS or Microsoft 365, or a lot of hosting services. That's what's worked. And so seeing that, you saw a lot of consumer services like Netflix, like HBO, like Apple TV Plus, like Apple's got fitness and music. Amazon has their own music service. You've got suddenly all these different subscription services. And what's also happened is several credit cards, if you have a Chase card, or you have several others, they're putting in your bill, they're like segmenting it out now, where you can see in black and white the total cost of your subscription services. And for many people, that is scary as hell because they did not realize that as they were adding on like $6.99 here and $4.99 there, they didn't realize that that is now adding up to like $250 a month they're spending in all these subscription services. And so a couple credit cards, I've got an Amex card. They had a little thing on there on the bill where it's like, hey, click here and we'll help you unsubscribe. Like, does this feel too high for you? Click this button and we'll just start canceling shit for you. It's very easy now, and people are doing that because they're like, hang on, I cut the cord on cable because I wanted to save money, and now I'm paying more money. That's what's going on. The net effect to comics, though, is bad because a lot of the smaller companies had borrowed money. Keep in mind, many of the smaller companies, and I know this for an absolute fact now because, well, I can't say why, but anyway, I've been getting some comps run on a lot of the smaller comic publishers, and a lot of them have pretty significant debt. And their debt often spins from the almost a worse situation where they're saying, hey, we're going to lose money because we're preparing these shows that are going to get picked up by a Netflix, which is also losing money. But in 2 or 3 years, we'll start making money. And that's how everything is going to come in. Now, Netflix was not losing money, but Disney Plus was, and several of these others are. But anyway, that's been their game. There are a number of pitch decks that I've seen firsthand from small comic publishers where there's a slide on there that says, we produce content that can go to these services. And then they've got a bunch of logos there for Hulu and Disney and Netflix and all the rest. And it's like, look at all of our options. We can go to any of these. It's what you've got to invest your money with us. You've got to let us borrow more money to make these comics because there's 12 different places that we can make a movie. I mean, isn't that amazing? 12, not just one. How could you not invest? We're bound to get a good Hollywood deal with these kinds of odds. That's the story that's being pitched. Unfortunately, if now the story is out in the news everywhere, like, hey, they're losing subscribers, they're going to cut back. That's bad news because these comic publishers have basically built a model suggesting that this is basically the entire reason you want to invest. And yeah, bad news. Yeah, pretty bad news. So I think it's what's going to happen is it's going to make it hard for some of these smaller companies to raise money and to get people to basically give them debt. It's going to become people are going to be more reluctant to do so. And in a lot of these cases, several of these comic companies, the smaller ones, are operating solely on this idea of borrowing money against this hopeful return. And if you take this away and that slide becomes less credible, they're in some trouble. So that's what's happened. Anyway, great question. Thanks for asking. If you have a question, write in. And thanks for listening.